Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Gaurav Sharma and with me is Nipunika Shahid, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring to you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says India can offer indigenous 5G technology to the world. India successfully test fires submarine-launched ballistic missile from INS Arihant. 38th meeting of the Council of Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure of Shanghai Cooperation Organization held in New Delhi. IMF Director Kristalina Georgieva hails India's economy growth, calls the country a bright spot on dark horizon. Iraq's parliament elects Kurdish politician Abdul Latif Rashid as new Iraqi head of state. Evacuation efforts underway after floods in several states in Australia. In shooting, India bags bronze medal at ISSF World Championship at Cairo in Egypt. And in FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup, India lose 0-3 to Morocco in the second group stage match in Bhubaneswar. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said that India is setting the global benchmarks on the digital front. She asserted that the country is confident to perform despite geopolitical and economic uncertainties. Ms. Sitharaman made these remarks at an event at a private university in Washington. The minister said that the 5G technology in India is completely indigenous and can now provide 5G technology to other countries.
The 5G that we've launched in our country is completely indigenous, standalone. There could be some critical parts coming from countries like Korea. So completely indigenous technology that we can now provide 5G for countries which they want, with whoever wants it. So our 5G is not imported from somewhere else. It's our own product. And the spread of it is also rapid. You've had private companies which have made these 5G products themselves, have very clearly said, by this year end, a certain amount of primary locations. By 24 end, most of the country will be covered.
Interacting with the audience, Ms. Sitharaman said that countries around the world recognize the scale of India's achievement.
India has actually set benchmarks. There are countries which recognize that this scale of achievement is an absolute watertight proof that it is unfailing over the years, over the numbers and the size of the expansion that it is dealing. We actually have set global benchmarks in the way in which digital economy and the services that digital platforms can do for us. And that itself for India is a very big confidence booster.
Earlier, Ms. Sitharaman participated in the second day of the ongoing G20 Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting in Washington, D.C. Speaking at the event, the Finance Minister called for investments in infrastructure and simplification of international taxation rules. She said that international tax rules should be simple, administrable, and generate meaningful revenue in developing countries.
Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Friday participated in the second day of the ongoing G20 Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting in Washington, D.C. The Finance Ministry tweeted that her interventions focused on infrastructure investments and international taxation during the meeting on the sidelines of the annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund (IMF) and the World Bank Group (WBG). The Finance Ministry also said the last session of the G20 FMCBG meeting saw discussions on the progress made on the agenda of international taxation during this year. On the two-pillar solution, Ms. Sitharaman called for participative engagement of all jurisdictions in negotiations and prioritizing capacity building. Earlier, she held back-to-back bilateral with global finance ministers and heads of the top international organizations in Washington, D.C. on topics that centered on important economic issues. Union Finance Minister is on an official visit to the United States to attend the IMF and the World Bank annual meetings, the G20 finance ministers and the Central Bank Governor FMCBG meetings. The finance minister is holding bilateral meetings with a number of countries from around the world. She is also holding one-on-one meetings with leaders and heads of OECD, the European Commission and UNDP. On the sidelines of IMF WB, Sitharaman met ministers from Egypt, Bhutan, Netherlands, Saudi Arabia and South Korea. She also met OECD Secretary General and FATF President Raja Kumar.
INS Arihant carried out a successful launch of a submarine-launched ballistic missile SSBM on Friday. The missile was tested to a predetermined range and impacted the target area in the Bay of Bengal with high accuracy. The Defence Ministry said that all operational and technological parameters of the weapon system have been validated. The successful user training launch of the SSBM by INS Arihant is significant to prove crew competency and validate the nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines subsurface ballistic nuclear SSBN program, a key element of India's nuclear deterrence capability. A robust, survivable and assured retaliatory capability is in keeping with India's policy to have credible minimum deterrence that underpins its no first use commitment.
38th meeting of the Council of the Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization SCO was held in New Delhi on Friday. Briefing the media in New Delhi on Friday, Deputy National Security Advisor Dattapat Salgikar said a decision was taken by the member states to counter the challenges and threats posed by different international terrorist groups from the territory of Afghanistan. He said the member states also agreed to organize and conduct a joint border operation with the forces called as Solidarity 2023, which will be organized by China.
The Council of SCO decided to organize and conduct a joint border operation with the forces and means of the border services of the competent authorities of SCO member states. The exercise is called Solidarity, joint measures of the competent authorities of the member states of Shanghai Cooperation Organization to counter the challenges and threats posed by international terrorist organizations from the territory of Afghanistan was approved.
The meeting was attended by the delegations of India, Kazakhstan, China, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan and Executive Committee of the SCO. Member states reached to an agreement to hold the next meeting of the SCO Council in March next year in Tashkent. In the meeting, the chairmanship in the SCO was passed from India to Kazakhstan.
India has demanded the Australian authorities to take action against those involved in the stabbing of an Indian student in Sydney. In response to a media query, the External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi expressed deep concern over the incident and said that the injured student is undergoing treatment in the hospital. He said that the Indian High Commission in Canberra and the Consulate in Sydney are in close touch with local authorities and are in contact with his family. In reply to another question, Mr. Bagchi said that there are ongoing negotiations on the free trade agreement between India and the UK. He asserted that there is interest on both sides if they can work towards a deal beneficial to both the nations at an early date. He said that negotiations on the FTA are underway and have not come to a halt.
India said it is deeply disappointed that the warring parties in Yemen have not agreed to an extension and expansion of the truce. A truce between the government of Yemen and Houthi rebels ended on 2nd of October. India's permanent representative to the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, said that the only sustainable solution to the conflict is a peacefully negotiated, Yemeni-led and Yemeni-owned political statement. She said this on Thursday at a United Nations Security Council meeting on Yemen. India also reaffirmed a strong commitment to Yemen's unity and unwavering support to the people of the country. India envoy also acknowledged the government of Yemen's determination in implementing the truce agreement in good faith and said that it is time for the warring sides to adopt a human-centric approach to the conflict rather than simply treating it as a military or political exercise. Ms. Kamboj also urged all parties to maintain the spirit of the truce and refrain from provocations or any military action that could lead to the resumption of active hostilities in Yemen.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring to you news commentary on the government's efforts to preserve and promote India's rich cultural heritage.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the first phase of the Mahakaleshwar Temple Corridor Development Project situated in Ujjain city of Madhya Pradesh. Mahakal Maharaj Mandir Parisar Vistar Yojana is an expansion, beautification and decongestion plan for the famous Mahakaleshwar Temple and its adjoining areas. The total cost of the project is 856 crore rupees. The Mahakaleshwar Temple in Ujjain is one of the most important Jyotirlings. There are 12 such Jyotirlings in India. Each one has its own significance. The Mahakal is the only Jyotirling that faces south. The 11 other Jyotirlings face east. The existing footfall of the temple, which is currently around 1.5 crore per annum, is expected to be doubled. The development of the project has been planned in 2 phases. The Mahakal Path contains 108 stambs or pillars which depict the Anand Tandav Swarup or dance form of Lord Shiva. Many religious sculptures depicting the life of Lord Shiva are installed along the Mahakal Path. The mural along the path is based on stories about the act of creation, the birth of Ganesh, story of Sati and Daksha among others from Shiv Puran. The area of the plaza is spread over 2.5 hectares and is surrounded by a lotus pond which contains a statue of Lord Shiv along with water fountains. The entire premises is monitored 24/7 by Integrated Command and Control Center with the help of artificial intelligence and surveillance cameras. A large-sized Shivaling is placed below the grand gateway Nandi Dwar of the Mahakal Lok. Prime Minister Modi unveiled the Shivaling to symbolically mark the opening of the mega corridor. The new corridor measures over 900 meters in length and is dotted with 108 ornate sandstone columns in a row bearing decorative Trishul design on top and mudras of Lord Shiv on its faces. It also has gushing fountains surrounded by artistic sculptures of the deity, as well as 53 illuminated murals depicting stories from Shiv Puran. Sri Mahakal Lok Development Project also includes a park, a multi-storied parking lot for cars and buses, shops, solar lighting, a facility center for pilgrims, a water pipeline and a sewer line, among others. A light and sound system has also been developed and work on phase 2 of the project is currently underway, under which Rudrasagar Lake has been rejuvenated. The mega corridor in Ujjain is located around 200 kilometers from the state capital Bhopal. The mega project after completion will expand the temple complex area from 2.87 hectares earlier to 47 hectares. The Mahakaleshwar temple gets devotees throughout the year. Speaking on the occasion, Prime Minister Modi said the cultural splendor of a nation becomes vast only when the flag of its success flutters on the world map. To reach the pinnacle of success, it is also necessary that the nation touches its cultural heights and should stand proudly with its identity. India has called for liberation from the mentality of slavery and being proud of its heritage like Panch Pran, 5 pledges in the Amrit Kal of independence. The construction of the Grand Ram Temple in Ayodhya is going on at full speed. Vishwanath Dham in Kashi is adding pride to the cultural capital of India. Development works are setting new records in Somnath. With the blessings of Baba Kedar in Uttarakhand, new chapters of development are being written in the Kedarnath Badrinath pilgrimage area. For the first time after independence, our 4 dhams are going to be connected with all-weather roads through the Char Dham project. The Kartarpur Sahib corridor has opened and Hemkund Sahib is going to be connected by ropeway for the first time after independence. Similarly, the pride of many such centers of our spiritual consciousness is being restored across the country through Swadesh Darshan and Prasad Yojana. As part of this Grand Mahakal Lok is also ready to welcome the future with the glory of the past. Mr. Modi said, when we look at our ancient temples from north to south, from east to west, their vastness and architecture fills us with wonder. The Prime Minister said India resurfaced, rose again from the energy of these centers of faith. With the blessings of Mahakal, India wrote an inscription of its timeless existence. Once again, Amar Avantika or Eternal Ujjain has proclaimed the cultural immortality of India in her Amrit Kal of independence. Ujjain, which has been the focal point of Indian calculus for thousands of years, is once again heralding a new period of India's grandeur. This is Saira Mujtaba for World News.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has described India as a bright spot on the dark horizon. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said that India deserves to be called a bright spot on this otherwise dark horizon because it has been a fast-growing economy even during these difficult times. She was replying to a question on her expectations from India just days before it takes over the presidency of G20. Ms. Georgieva was talking to reporters on the sidelines of the IMF and World Bank annual meetings in Washington. She said that most importantly, India's growth is underpinned by structural reforms.
In Lebanon, Parliament failed on Friday for a second time to elect a successor to President Michel Aoun, with some lawmakers boycotting the vote, meaning the quorum was not reached. Only 71 out of 128 lawmakers attended on Friday's session. Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri called for another vote on October 20 to take place before Aoun's term finishes at the end of the month. Lebanon is grappling with its worst ever financial crisis, is also in the throes of a political paralysis that has hampered attempts to form a new government since the outgoing cabinet's mandate expired in May. With no clear candidate to replace Aoun, the process to name a new president could also be extended, although Lebanon can ill afford any delay. Since the start of Lebanon's financial crisis in 2019, the currency has lost more than 95% of its value and poverty rates have climbed to cover most of the population.
North Korea has fired an unspecified ballistic missile towards the sea on Friday, Yonhap reported, citing South Korea's military. The news came after Yonhap reported nearly a dozen North Korean fighter planes flew close to the border with South Korea, prompting Seoul to scramble jets in response. The incident took place amid rising military tensions on the peninsula over a flurry of weapons tests by Pyongyang and was the second such event involving fighter planes in a week. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, cited by Yonhap, said that 10 fighters had been detected flying 25 kilometers north of the inter-Korean border on Friday, crossing a Seoul-set reconnaissance line that triggers an automatic operational response from South Korea. The action comes shortly after Pyongyang test-fired a pair of long-range strategic cruise missiles on Thursday. According to the state media, the tests were supervised by the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
The White House has released a U.S. foreign policy objective putting national security on the top of the agenda by outcompeting China and curbing Russian aggression. The policy also said the U.S. wants to build an international alliance to do both, which are the main goals of its foreign policy. The Biden administration's long-awaited national security strategy says outcompeting China and restraining Russia's aggression as its conflict in Ukraine progresses will be its key goals for the coming year. The 48-page document launched on Thursday after a number of delays as the White House adjusted to Russian President Vladimir Putin's action in Ukraine, talks up President Joe Biden's resolve to build international alliances to stand up for democracy. At a press briefing accompanying its release, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the war hadn't fundamentally altered Biden's approach to foreign policy, but has strengthened the importance of and his desire to work with international partners. Regarding China, the strategy highlights Biden's concerns that Beijing was attempting to layer authoritarian governance with a revisionist foreign policy.
Iraq's parliament on Friday elected Kurdish politician Abdul Latif Rashid as the new Iraqi head of state, replacing Barham Saleh by the assembly in the capital's heavily fortified government and diplomatic district. Rashid won more than 160 votes against 99 for the incumbent Saleh, an assembly official said. Rashid's first task was expected to be nominating a candidate for prime minister to replace the current caretaker premier, Mustafa al-Kadhimi, and attempt to form a new government for the crisis-hit nation. A favoured candidate for the Prime Minister's post was Mohammad Shia al-Sudani, 52, of the Shiite Muslim bloc, the coordination framework, which includes pro-Iranian formerly paramilitary groups. At least 9 rockets targeted Iraq's parliament inside the heavily fortified Green Zone, the seat of the government, ahead of a much-anticipated session where lawmakers forged ahead with the formation of the next government despite the political crisis. At least 10 people were wounded, including 6 members of the security forces or bodyguards of lawmakers, as well as 4 civilians in a nearby district.
Japanese cabinet ministers on Friday approved the scrapping of a law that stipulates women pregnant at the time of a divorce must wait 100 days before marrying again. Critics have campaigned for a withdrawal of the 1896 law, which had banned remarriage for 6 months until being revised in 2016, calling it outdated and discriminatory. The change will also remove a rule that grants parents the right to discipline children to whatever necessary extent. The government will submit the revised civil code to the current parliamentary session that ends on December 10, and the change is expected to be enacted in 2024 if passed, local media said. Japan consistently ranks low in the World Economic Forum's annual Global Gender Gap Report, which takes political empowerment into account as well as health, education and economic participation. In 2022, the country was placed 116th out of 146 ranked. 2 years ago, the government delayed an almost 2-decade-old target for at least 30% of leadership positions in business and politics to be held by women. A new 5-year plan said efforts would be made to meet the target by 2030 instead of the end of 2020.
The Russian government on Friday ordered repairs on the Crimea bridge to be completed by July 2023 after Moscow's only bridge connecting the Russian mainland to the annexed peninsula was damaged by an explosion. The cabinet, in a decree signed by Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin, ordered the company tasked with the design and restoration of destroyed elements of the transport and engineering infrastructure of the Crimean bridge to complete the work by the 1st of July 2023.
Britain's Royal Mail poster operator is seeking to axe up to 10,000 jobs, its parent company said on Friday, blaming industrial action for huge financial losses. Its parent group, International Distribution Service, said in a statement that their operational full-time employee workforce will need to reduce by an estimated 10,000 by the end of August 2023. The statement added that up to 6,000 compulsory redundancies may be required. The firm said its position had deteriorated due to a combination of the impact of the industrial dispute and inability to deliver the joint productivity improvements agreed with unions and deteriorating parcel volumes. Thousands of postal workers who deliver parcels and letters across the nation in distinctive red vans with a crown logo went on strike in August after being given a pay raise that fell far short of inflation.
In Australia, the states of Victoria, New South Wales and Tasmania are evacuating the residents as torrential rain brings major flooding. Many parts of the country have received more than 3 times their average rainfall this month in just 24 hours. According to media reports, at least 500 homes have been flooded, 1 person has died and another is missing in the flood-related incidents.
India began their ISSF World Championship campaign with a bronze in the women's 25 meters pistol team junior competition in Cairo, Egypt on Thursday. The trio of Isha Singh, Namya Kapoor and Vibhuti Bhatia demolished Team Germany 17-1 in the bronze medal match to get India on the medal tally on day 1 of the competition. Isha, Namya and Vibhuti finished 4th in the first round of qualification with a score of 856 to make it to the next stage in 3rd position. In the next round, they shot 437 to finish behind the Germans in 4th position to qualify for the bronze medal match. China won the gold in the event while Korea bagged silver.
In FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup 2022, India lost 0-3 to Morocco in its second group stage match tonight at the Kalinga Stadium in Bhubaneswar. After a goalless first half, Morocco turned the tables in the second half as they took the lead from El Madani Doha.
Over the past 75 years since independence, India's largest public service broadcaster, All India Radio, has been the proverbial storyteller for crores of people across the country. All India Radio is celebrating 75 years of freedom with the series Azad Bharat Ki Baat Akashvani Ke Saath. It showcases the journey of India since independence in various walks of life through the storytelling of All India Radio. In today's episode, we bring you the story of India's rising stature on global stage.
India's stature on the global stage has grown significantly, and the world expects more from the country. Colonialism had reduced India to one of the poorest nations, but today it is the 5th biggest economy in the world. India has always prioritized cooperation over conflict, coexistence over competition, sharing over receiving, plurality over hegemony, and shared prosperity over zero-sum notions of growth. The country believes in the promise of diplomacy and international cooperation. India is firm on a zero-tolerance approach to cross-border terrorism. On all global platforms, India has reiterated that there is no justification for any act of terrorism. Ever since Narendra Modi assumed office as the Prime Minister of India, he has not only enhanced India's position at a global level, but also left a huge impact on world leaders. When COVID-19 pandemic posed an unprecedented challenge before the world, India played a significant role in addressing many issues with greater urgency. Prime Minister Modi said India's COVID vaccine Maitri program has helped more than 100 nations.
कोरोना जैसी वैश्विक महामारी में हम सब ने और दुनिया ने भारत का सामर्थ्य देखा है। सदी की इस सबसे बड़ी आपदा में ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन्स में इतना बड़ा डिस्रप्शन हुआ, फिर युद्ध ने भी इस संकट को और बढ़ा दिया। इन सबके बीच भी भारत आज ग्रोथ के एक बड़े केंद्र के रूप में उभर रहा है। अपनी वैक्सीन तैयार की, इतनी वैक्सीन बनाई, भारत ने दुनिया के 100 से अधिक देशों को भी वैक्सीन भेजी है।
Addressing the 77th high-level session of United Nations General Assembly in New York on 24th of September 2022, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said that India is meeting its development targets as well as offering partnerships to nations in Asia, Africa and Latin America. The minister pointed out that in its pursuit of climate action and justice, India has worked with partners on the International Solar Alliance, the One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure.
This new India, under the visionary and dynamic leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is a confident and resurgent society. Its agenda for our centenary will be achieved through the 5 pledges that we committed to on our Independence Day. 1. We are resolved to make India a developed country in the next 25 years for the world that creates more capacities for global good. 2. We will liberate ourselves from a colonial mindset. Externally, this means reformed multilateralism and more contemporary global governance. 3. Our rich civilizational heritage will be a source of pride and of strength. This includes care and concern for the environment, so ingrained in our traditional ethos. 4. We will promote greater unity and solidarity. This expresses a coming together on global issues such as terrorism, pandemics, or the environment.
And before we end the bulletin, a quick look at the headlines once again. Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says India can offer indigenous 5G technology to the world. India successfully test-fires submarine-launched ballistic missile from INS Arihant. 38th meeting of the Council of Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure of Shanghai Cooperation Organization held in New Delhi. IMF Director Kristalina Georgieva hails India's economy growth, calls the country a bright spot on dark horizon. Iraq's parliament elects Kurdish politician Abdul Latif Rashid as new Iraqi head of state. Evacuation efforts underway after floods in several states in Australia. In shooting, India bags bronze medal at ISSF World Championship at Cairo in Egypt. And in FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup, India lose 0-3 to Morocco in the second group stage match in Bhubaneswar.
And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favourite bhajan, Vaishnavajan, by artists from Zambia.
वैष्णवजन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई।
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time on tomorrow with the next edition of World News.